High school life is supposed to be about youth and romance, but for Kageyama Ryo, the only thing that matters is the SSR healer on his screen. He slams his phone down, eyes wide with the kind of despair only 100 wasted gacha pulls can create. Yuta, I spent all my stones and got no good rolls. The door swings open, and Ryo's world officially ends. No gacha salt compares to the sight of his best friend wrapped in a pair of actual human arms. A heavy silence hangs over them, broken only by Yuta's panicked stammer as he realizes he's been caught. Ryo stands there, the realization sinking in like lid. Since when did you get a girlfriend? He was so obsessed with his digital favorites that he didn't even notice the real world moving on without him. It's the ultimate betrayal, the Otaku Graduation. While his friends are making memories, Ryo is just staring at a screen, waiting for a lucky roll that's never coming. But his pity party is about to be crashed by a very familiar, very annoying voice. Enter Kohinata Asahi, the first year who makes it her life's mission to remind Ryo exactly why he's single. She leans back, phone in hand, wearing a smirk that radiates pure, concentrated cheekiness. You know you're not popular because you do this kind of lame otaku stuff. Ryo groans, already feeling the headache forming behind his eyes. Asahi doesn't just tease, she hunts. She gets right in his space, her eyes sparkling with the joy of a job well done. It's about time we face reality, right? Ryo's only defense is a desperate, shut up, but even he knows he's losing ground. This is his daily routine. Kohinata Asahi, the girl from next door who's been following him around since they were kids, is now a first year in high school and still hasn't found a better hobby than mocking his gacha habits. She leans in, scrutinizing his phone with a dismissive pout, making sure he knows exactly how little she thinks of his digital goddess. Ryo tries to explain the deep, narrative resonance of Seren's character design, her maturity, her motherly love, but Asahi just bites into a snack, her gaze flat and unimpressed. She claims she's just adding flair to his dreary life, but the expression she wears while looking at him suggests she's the one enjoying the show a little too much. The Modern Culture Exchange Club, or the Otaku Circle as everyone else calls it, is usually a safe haven until Yuta walks back in. Suddenly the bold, teasing Asahi shrinks. The cheekiness evaporates, replaced by a stiff, awkward greeting that has Ryo raising an eyebrow. It's the great irony of their relationship. The girl who shreds Ryo's dignity for fun can barely function in a normal conversation with his friends. She stares at the floor, face flushing red as she struggles to find words for Yuta. No, she stammers, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else on earth. Ryo watches her, remembering the kid who always had her head down, the one who didn't have many friends. He was the only one who bothered to give her attention, and now he's the only person she can truly talk to. Even as he complains, he wonders if she'll ever manage to branch out before he graduates. The moment they're alone, the claws come back out. Asahi shakes off her anxiety and pivots back to her favorite target. Your age equals the amount of years you haven't had a girlfriend, right? It's a low blow, and Ryo can feel his blood pressure spiking as she hits him right where it hurts. Ryo is practically vibrating with frustration, clutching his head as Asahi laughs at his expense. I don't need a girlfriend, he shouts, a desperate lie that she sees right through. She leans in, a pocky stick held between her lips like a challenge, her eyes glinting with a new, dangerous idea. The atmosphere between them suddenly feels very thin. Asahi looks him dead in the eye, the teasing gone, replaced by something much more pointed. Should I become your girlfriend then? Ryo freezes, his heart hammering against his ribs as he stares at the girl who's suddenly much too close. She presents the box of chocolate sticks, like a dual invitation. This is the pocky game, don't you understand? She's hiding behind her arrogance again, claiming she's just pitying her loner senpai. Ryo stays silent, eyes fixed on her, trying to figure out if she's actually serious. Ryo scoffs, looking away in a desperate attempt to regain his cool. I've never once thought of you as a woman, the line hits. Asahi like a physical blow, her smug expression shatters into a look of pure, unadulterated shock. Huh? She recovers quickly, resting her chin on her hand and smirking around the pocky stick. Since he's so unconscious of her, surely a little game won't bother him, right? She claims she has more experience, calling his bluff and daring him to prove he isn't just running away. Gross. Otaku. Virgin. Unpopular. The words hit like lightning bolts, pinning Ryo to his chair. Asahi is having the time of her life, laughing as she watches him squirm. She asks who the real kid is here, and finally, Ryo has had enough. Something in him snaps. A shadow falls over Ryo's eyes. This brat needs a reality check, and he's the one who's going to deliver it. He slams his hand on the desk, leaning forward with a terrifying grin. "I'll do it then." Asahi flinches, her playful demeanor finally showing a crack of genuine panic. The distance vanishes. There is only the chocolate-covered stick between them and the sound of two hearts trying to beat their way out of two chests. Ryo leans in, his gaze locked onto hers, determined not to be the first one to blink. Asahi's eyes are wide, the smugness completely replaced by a dawning realization that she might have played herself. Up close, everything is different. He notices the length of her eyelashes, the smallness of her face, the way her breath catches. She's pretty. It's a dangerous thought, one he tries to shout down. Of course not. He yells internally as she asks if he's feeling nervous, her voice just a whisper away from his lips. His brain is short-circuiting. Think pure thoughts, he chants to himself, but it's impossible with her right there. The pocky snaps, and the distance between them shrinks to a fraction of an inch. He's looking at her, and for the first time, he isn't seeing a childhood friend. He's seeing a girl. Asahi's face is a crimson masterpiece. The junior who claimed to be the experienced one is trembling, her eyes darting around as Ryo refuses to back down. He sees it, the fear, the blush, the absolute defeat in her eyes. It's his turn to play the hunter. Ryo lets a slow, victorious smirk crawl across his face. He's won. He leans in just a hair further, his voice low and steady. "Are you sure you're not the one being self-conscious?" It's the final blow. Asahi's brain officially exits the building, her face exploding into a bright red panic. Chaos erupts. Asahi flails, her chair skidding across the floor as she tries to put distance between them. "I'm not conscious of you, okay?" she screams, her voice cracking with desperation. Ryo just sighs, rubbing his head, pretending he isn't also 5 seconds away from a heart attack. He's got the receipts now. Her red face, the way she fell off the chair, the way she broke the stick, it's a total loss for the cheeky junior. Ryo leans back, crossing his arms with a satisfied nod. "I won." Asahi can only sputter, her dignity currently lying in a heap on the classroom floor. But looking at her now, the victory feels a bit different. Asahi is a mess, her eyes welling up with frustrated tears as she tries to maintain her cheeky persona. "I haven't lost yet," she whispers, her lower lip trembling in a way that makes Ryo's chest feel strangely tight. He exhales, the competitive fire dying out. He pats her head with the empty pocky box, offering a small, apologetic smile. My bad. I was a little mean, wasn't I? It's a peace offering, a return to their usual rhythm, even if both of them know the rhythm has changed." He stands up, preparing to leave, but he stops at the door for one last piece of advice. Games like that, they're supposed to be played with someone you actually care about. He doesn't look back as he walks out, leaving the air in the room heavy with everything he didn't say. Alone in the silence, Asahi finally collapses. She hides her burning face behind the pocky box, her heart still racing a mile a minute. Lie-like she stammers, the word hanging in the air. She looks at the door he just left through, her voice barely a breath. "Don't only look at 2D girls sometimes, look at me too." Idiot. Ryo walks home, trying to shake off the image of her face, telling himself it's just another year of being her toy. But then, a familiar shout from behind. Asahi is running up to him, her energy back, pointing at his hair with a mischievous grin. "Kageyama-senpai, you got bedhead, you know?" She's already got her phone out, snapping a picture of his messy hair despite his protests. Ryo sighs, but he doesn't walk away. Until this girl finally makes some actual friends, he guesses he'll have to keep playing along. Just a little longer. April is the month of high-stakes paperwork, and the silence of the clubroom is currently Ryo's only sanctuary. He stares at his future plans form, Mayday University written in bold, hopeful ink, but the piece is short-lived. A familiar mischievous voice cuts through his thoughts before he can even fold the paper. "Hey, Kageyama-senpai!" Asahi is a pro at two things: social anxiety and making Ryo's life difficult. She leads with a jab about his lack of a girlfriend, then swifts the form right out of his hand with a predatory grin. She's always digging into his business, and Ryo's too busy being flustered to stop her. She scans the paper, and her reaction is a mix of shock and pure unadulterated shade. To her, Mate is for the stylish and cool elite, not a nerd like Ryo. She leans in, eyes narrowing as she delivers the killing blow. Senpai, someone like you, a plain otaku, should just go to a local college, okay? To prove her intellectual superiority, she pulls out a trick question involving stacked dice. Ryo bites, giving the obvious answer, only for Asahi to light up with a triumphant BZZD. She's in her element now, gloating over a technicality while Ryo's jaw hits the floor. She is absolutely relishing this, her face centimeters from his as she laughs. She thinks she's won the day, dismissing his dignity with a final, sing-song idiot. But the smugger she gets, the harder the fall is going to be. While she's busy playing the genius, Ryo notices a stray paper in her bag. He pulls it out, and the 33 in red ink tells a much different story. Her face drains of color as she scrambles for excuses, but Ryo just smirks. If I actually tried, I'd ace it easily. Time for a little taste of her own medicine. Ryo throws a probability problem her way, daring her to put that untapped potential to the test. Asahi starts sweating immediately, her confidence crumbling into a desperate attempt to manually count every face on the dice. Watching her try to brute force math is like watching a car crash in slow motion. When she finally gives up, she pivots to the classic loser's defense. You don't even need math to survive in this world. Ryo just sighs. She's practically begging to be sent back to elementary school. Enough games. Ryo reaches into his bag and slams down his own reality check. Second place out of 260 students. He leans over the table, his shadow looming as he stares her down. Don't you ever call me an idiot ever again. The room goes quiet as Ryo voices the question that's been hanging in the air. If she's this bad at the basics, why would she struggle to get into a top-tier school like this? Asahi looks down, her usual fire replaced by a trembling pout. The cheekiness is gone, the teasing is dead. With her eyes glassing over and her face burning a deep crimson, the truth finally tumbles out. It's because I wanted to be with you. Ryo freezes, the world around him blurring into static. He stares at the girl who usually spends her day insulting him, now reduced to a blushing, stammering mess. He never expected this side of her, and suddenly, he's the one struggling to keep his heart in check. A realization dawns on him. If she really forced her way into this school just for him, then the power dynamic hasn't just shifted, it's flipped. He leans in close, a playful smirk dancing on his lips. How badly did you want to be with me? Asahi snaps. She's flailing, screaming, and turning redder than a fire truck as she tries to rewrite history. It's not about him, she claims it's just convenient. But the more she yells, the less Ryo believes her. He just sits back and watches the show. The noise of her panic fades as Ryo captures her gaze again. This time, there's no smirk. He looks at her with a quiet, steady resolve that makes her breath hitch. He's not teasing anymore when he makes the offer. I'll teach you. The tension snaps back into its usual shape. But the foundation is different now. They're back to yelling and insults. Yet there's a book between them and a shared goal. Ryo decides she isn't even cute, but his heart might still be arguing that point. Out in the hallway, the top of the leaderboard remains unchanged. Miyazono Kaku stares at her first-place ranking with the cold indifference of someone who finds excellence exhausting. First place again, ugh, how boring. Just when Ryo thinks he's finally got a handle on the chaos, the hallway air turns arctic. Miyazono Kaku, the girl who lives on the throne of the academic leaderboard, isn't just passing by, she stops, she stares. And the entire school seems to hold its breath as she delivers the 4 most terrifying words a high-ranking socialite can say to an otaku. Can I talk to you for a second? She leads him into a quiet room, her footsteps sounding like a death march. She doesn't waste time on pleasantries, she just sighs with the weight of someone who finds perfection exhausting. She's bored by the gap between them, leaning in with a look of pure disdain. Do you like losing that much? Ryo tries to play it off with his usual, it's not even my final form excuses, but Miyazono's eyes are like scanners, seeing right through the bravado. He clings to that one time in their first year when he actually topped her on a test, the one moment his pride tasted like something other than dirt. To her that wasn't a rivalry, it was just a statistical anomaly in a life of boring victories. She closes the distance, invading his personal space with the clinical precision of a predator. She knows about the club. She knows about the lack of reports. And she knows exactly where to twist the knife. A bet for the midterms. If Ryo loses, his precious otaku sanctuary vanishes. We shut down your club. Meanwhile, the local jealous gremlin is currently having a localized meltdown in the doorway. Asahi watches, heart thumping against her ribs, as she realizes Ryo's new rival looks suspiciously like his favorite 2D waifu. She's tall, she's mature, and she's currently shoving Ryo onto a sofa like she's claiming territory. The world narrows down to the pressure of Mizuno's hands on his shoulders, and the scent of her perfume. She's looming over him, a silhouette of absolute authority, pinning him to the cushions until he has nowhere left to look but up. It's not just a bet anymore, it's a total siege of his senses. Mizuno smiles, a sharp, dangerous curve of the lips that promises either salvation or total ruin. She whispers the reward for the winner, her breath brushing his face while Asahi turns a shade of red that shouldn't be biologically possible. I will do whatever you say. Ryo's brain short-circuits, his eyes glued to the bounce of the situation, while his internal monologue screams in otaku. He's already imagining the worst or the best when Mizuno casually deflates the mood. She starts listing chores like buying lunch or making funny faces, acting like his mounting panic is the funniest thing she's seen all day. Don't say vague stuff like that. People will get the wrong idea. She leans back, her expression shifting into a smug, cat-like grin as she watches him squirm. She's got him exactly where she wants him, trapped between his pride as a student and his panic as a shut-in. Aw, were you thinking about something naughty? Something in Ryo snaps. He's tired of being the punching bag, tired of being the guy who just takes it because he's an otaku. He stands up, clearing the fog of her perfume from his head. If she wants a war of grades, he'll give her a massacre. I'll take your challenge. Mizuno doesn't back off. She just pivots back to teasing, accusing him of staring at her chest with the kind of bluntness that would kill a lesser man. Ryo is vibrating with indignation, trying to explain that biology isn't his fault, but she just laughs, branding him with the ultimate high school label. You're totally the quiet, pervy type, Kageyama-kun? But then, the unexpected happens. Ryo doesn't blush and run. He steps into her space, his hands moving before his brain can veto the decision. He grabs the edges of her blazer, pulling the fabric together with a sharp, decisive tug. His gaze is level, his voice dropping an octave as he delivers the shutdown. Then maybe close it up. The room falls into a sudden, heavy silence. For the first time, Mizuno is the one left speechless, her face heating up as Ryo turns his back and walks away. She watches the door, her fingers hovering over her now-closed blazer, a small, genuine smile creeping onto her face. He's actually interesting. Outside, Ryo is having a full-blown internal crisis, his hands clutching his head as he wonders what possessed him to touch a girl's clothes. He's so busy dying of embarrassment that he almost trips over the blonde ball of resentment huddled against the wall. Asahi, what are you doing sitting here? Asahi looks up, her eyes narrowing into slits of pure, unadulterated judgment. She doesn't just ask what happened. She accuses him of being lovey-dovey with the top student, her voice dripping with enough salt to cure a ham. She's seen the proximity, she's seen the blush, and she's decided she doesn't like the new competition one bit. She's totally your type, right? The playful teasing is gone, replaced by a desperate, defiant resolve. Asahi stands up, her grip tightening on her bag as she stares him down. If Mizuno gets a bet, she wants one too. She's not letting anyone else take the do-whatever-I-say reward. She moves closer, her voice trembling but steady. Make a bet with me. Loser has to do whatever the winner says. Asahi isn't just asking for a bet, she's staging a coup. She stands there, eyes narrow and defiant, laying down a challenge that sounds more like a decree. The loser has to do whatever the winner says. Ryo tries to play the adult in the room, but his protest is cut short by the blur of her school skirt as she sprints away, leaving him with a command to be free after school. Next thing Ryo knows, he's standing in the neon-soaked purgatory of a local arcade. He sighs, watching Asahi march ahead with the confidence of a girl who hasn't realized she's about to lose. He figures he'll just play along for a bit to keep the peace. But the moment she points to the taiko drums, the fun starts looking a lot more like a battlefield. Asahi sticks her tongue out, her competitive streak flaring up as she cranks the difficulty all the way up to extreme. She's a blur of motion, her drumsticks hammering out a rhythmic assault that looks less like a game and more like an exorcism. Ryo can only watch in stunned silence as his junior transforms into a pint-sized percussion demon, wondering if he's actually in way over his head. The scoreboard doesn't care about style points, and it certainly doesn't care about Asahi's feelings. Ryo wins by a landslide. One look at her face and he realizes he's committed a social felony. She's not just upset, she's teary-eyed and judging you upset. As the girls nearby whisper about the guy making a girl cry, Ryo panics, physically dragging her away before his reputation flatlines. Come on Asahi, we're moving on. Round 2, Zombie Sniper. Ryo watches Asahi's terrified, eyes closed spray and pray and makes an executive decision. If he wins again, she might actually flood the arcade with tears. He takes the dive, letting his character become zombie chow while she miraculously clutches the victory. He manages a weak good for you as her score dwarfs his intentional failure. The tears vanish instantly, giving way to a grin so smug it could cut glass. She's leaning in, practically vibrating with triumph, as she delivers the killing blow, loser. Ryo stares at his shoes, realizing his moment of mercy has just earned him an afternoon of relentless teasing. His generosity officially ended about 5 seconds ago. Tiebreaker time, racing. Ryo settles into the plastic seat, his hands finding the familiar grip of the wheel. He watches Asahi fumbling with the basic controls, asking where the accelerator is, and he can't help but smirk. This is his world. He's already visualizing the victory lap while Asahi's cart struggles to stay in a straight line. But Asahi isn't playing fair. She's playing Mario Kart logic. She's lobbing items with the precision of a professional chaos agent, hitting Ryo the second he gets a lead. Too bad for you, senpai. Ryo's blood is starting to boil as his cart spins out for the 3rd time, his pro-gamer pride taking a direct hit from a well-timed soccer ball. Enough is enough. Ryo's knuckles go white as he grips the wheel, aiming for a frame-perfect shortcut that only a true nerd would know. He drifts past the obstacle, leaving Asahi screaming in his digital dust. It's not cheating, it's a technique. He's finally taking this match as seriously as his midterm exams. Ryo is inches from the finish line, victory practically in his hand. See ya, Asahi, but he forgot the golden rule. Never underestimate a girl with nothing left to lose. She doesn't just reach for her screen, she lunges across the seat, grabbing his arm and wheel in a desperate tangled mess. The cabinets shudder, the screens flash red, and then crash. The digital world and the real one collide. The arcade's noise suddenly dies out, replaced by the frantic thumping of Ryo's own heart. Asahi is right there, her face inches from his, her eyes wide and glistening with a mix of panic and something much heavier than a game. The smell of her shampoo is more overwhelming than any racing simulator, and for a second, neither of them can move. You can't wait. Ryo's brain is short-circuiting, his hand frozen on the steering wheel while his cheeks flare a brilliant, betraying red. The awkward silence follows them all the way out the door, hanging heavy in the evening air. The competitive fire is gone, leaving behind a tension that makes every step feel like they're walking on eggshells. Asahi breaks the silence with her usual cheeky grin, claiming the victory anyway. But then she drops a tactical nuke on Ryo's composure. Today, kind of felt like a date. Ryo hides his face behind his hand, his internal monologue screaming in protest even as his heart refuses to slow down. He looks over, ready to give her a piece of his mind, but the words die in his throat. Asahi is smiling, really smiling, with a look of pure, unshielded happiness that he's never seen before. There's no teasing, no armor, just a girl who's genuinely glad she spent the day with him. It wasn't a date, Ryo stammers, desperately trying to reclaim his dignity. He braces himself for the inevitable fallout, fully expecting Asahi to use her winner's order to turn him into her personal slave. He's already mentally preparing for the most embarrassing command she can think of, his nerves stretched to the breaking point. But she just giggles, leaving the threat hanging over his head. It's still a secret. She's saving it for when it really matters, a ticking time bomb of a promise. But as they walk home, a sleek black car idles in the shadows. From behind the glass, a woman's cold gaze fixes on them. Kageyama-kun. Looks like I have to make you take this seriously. The Modern Culture Exchange Club is currently a high-octane argument dressed up as a hobby meeting. Ryo is caught in the crossfire as his friends wave gacha rewards and concert invites in his face like they're staging an intervention for his social life. He's white-knuckling his pen, trying to focus on his notes while the noise level hits a fever pitch. He grits his teeth, meets their gaze directly, and snaps, "I'm not going to either." His friends aren't taking no for an answer, leaning in with that classic "it's Golden Week" logic that usually works on any self-respecting teenager. But they don't know the club's survival is currently hanging by a thread. Ryo looks down at his books, the weight of the bet with Meizono making his grip on that pen feel like a lifeline. He just sighs and tells them to handle their own plans. He's got a war to win in the library. The bribery starts coming out. Free yakiniku and limited edition books are being dangled like carrots, and for a second, Ryo's resolve actually flickers. He's human after all, and even an elite student in training has a breaking point when gacha waifus are involved. He's about to crack when a sharp, authoritative click echoes from the door. He shuts his eyes and forces out a final, "studying." The door slides open, and the temperature in the room drops about 20 degrees. It's the student president, Karen Meizono, looking like she's here to perform a corporate audit on their souls. The guys go from bickering to terrified in a heartbeat as she stares through Ryo with a gaze that could peel paint. She doesn't just enter, she takes ownership of the air in the room, announcing, "Kageyama-kun has an important match with me." The club members are starstruck by the beauty and paralyzed by the badge, but Mizono isn't here for a meet and greet. She's brought her assistant, Tsumugi, for one reason, a total room purge. Ryo's stomach drops as she scans their modern culture, which is mostly just comics and snacks, with utter disgust. Then she drops the guillotine. Her voice is flat and final. The Modern Culture Exchange Club is being disbanded. Ryo scrambles to explain the bet, trying to buy time, but Meizono is already in motion. She picks up a manga like it's a biohazard, her eyes narrowing at the distractions Ryo should have outgrown months ago. It's not a conversation anymore, it's an execution of their hobbies. She tosses a book toward her assistant and gives the order to trash the entire shelf. Ryo can only shout, "Wait, wait, wait." Board games, magazines, and even his beloved gacha merch are being swept into trash bags with surgical precision. Mizono treats their passion like a mess that needs to be cleaned, her voice echoing "dispose" with every item she touches. Ryo watches his sanctuary disappear into plastic bags, the reality of his situation finally sinking in. His eyes go wide as he realizes, oh no. Ryo attempts to claim he's been studying fine, but Mizono has the receipts. She leans in, reminding him that she saw him wasting time at the arcade the other day. She's not just judging his grades, she's judging his commitment. She looks him dead in the eye, her voice dripping with a mix of disappointment and challenge. "I don't want to have a boring match," she says, basically calling him a coward for not taking their bet seriously. She isn't even looking at him as an equal anymore. She dismisses him with a flick of her hair, making it clear that with his current attitude, he isn't even a worthy opponent. Ryo stands there, frozen, feeling the cold sting of being looked down on by the person who holds his future in her hands. The weight of his own slackness hits him like a physical blow. He whispers to himself, "I'm really being looked down on, huh?" The ultimate line is crossed when she snatches his phone, and a notification for his favorite gacha character, Seiren, pops up on the screen. To Meizono, it's just more digital trash. To Ryo, it's his world. The club erupts in chaos as he tries to grab it back, but she holds her ground, her thumb hovering over the screen with lethal intent. She looks at him with a chilling smile and asks, "Shall we uninstall it?" In a desperate lunge for the phone, the world tilts. There's a sharp clatter of chairs, a blur of motion, and suddenly the air is gone. Ryo didn't just grab the phone, he's pinned the student president flat against the table. The clubroom goes deathly silent as the realization of their proximity hits. Ryo is looming over her, his breath close enough to stir her hair. She stares up at him, her face flushing as she manages a shaky, "Kageyama-kun?" He doesn't back away. He doesn't apologize. He just stares down at her with a gaze that's gone terrifyingly cold. He reaches out, taking his phone from her trembling hand. Mizono flinches, her usual composure completely shattered by the intensity in his eyes. What, are you mad?" she stammers, but Ryo isn't listening to her words. His thumb moves with purpose, hovering over the confirmation screen. With one deliberate tap, he deletes the game, years of progress and his favorite character, gone in a second. He stares straight at her as he says it, "Deleted." Mizono can only stare up at him, shocked by the sheer ruthlessness of his own self-discipline. He leans in closer, his voice low and unwavering. Because you made me get this serious. Ryo pulls back, leaving a lingering heat on the table as he stands up. The elite student is back, but there's a new edge to him now, a dark confidence that wasn't there before. He looks back over his shoulder with a sharp, dangerous smile that says the games are over. He drops 2 words that feel like a death sentence for her confidence. Prepare yourself. Karen Miyazono is left trembling against the table, her hands clutching at her chest as her face burns a bright, uncontrollable red. She struggles to convince herself it was just about the game, that he's crazy for deleting it, but her heart is hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She's the one who was supposed to be in control, but right now, she feels like she just survived a collision. The club members watch Ryo like they're seeing a stranger, stunned by the intensity he just displayed. Even Miyazono is still processing the shift, watching him with wide, confused eyes as he prepares for the real battle ahead. The clubroom sign hangs on the door, a reminder of what's at stake. 2 weeks until the test. Ryo is getting all serious, and the school has no idea what's coming. The sky is dumping buckets, and the schedule is a disaster. Ryo's just trying to cram for midterms at a bus stop when the damp air suddenly gets a lot more annoying. He hears the splash of footsteps before he sees the smirk. Asahi leans in close, her eyes twinkling with mischief as she asks, "Senpai, you alone? Shall I escort you home?" They're mid-argument when a wall of street water decides to join the conversation. A black sedan barrels through a puddle, turning them both into wet rags in half a second. Before they can even scream at the taillights, the window slides down to reveal the last person Ryo wants to see while dripping wet, the student council president. Miyazono recognizes him instantly, her sharp eyes widening at the soggy mess on the curb. She offers a ride, and suddenly Ryo is sandwiched in the back seat between 2 girls who radiate enough tension to jumpstart the engine. He stares straight ahead, hands gripped tight, thinking, this is actually really embarrassing though? Asahi watches from the corner of her eye, tracking the way the president carries herself, the expensive luggage, the effortless grace, the memory of her looming over Ryo in the clubroom. Every detail is a reminder of a world Asahi doesn't belong to. Miyazono pulls out a floral handkerchief, her movements precise and polished. It's more than a simple gesture, she takes charge, her gaze lingering on them with a soft, predatory concern that makes Asahi's skin crawl. Miyazono reaches out to wipe a stray drop from Asahi's cheek, and for a second, the junior is frozen by the scent and the kindness. But the moment breaks as Miyazono pivots back to Ryo, bringing up their academic match with a competitive glint. She's smart, she's kind, and she's already taken the lead. Asahi stares at her own lap, her fingers digging into the fabric of her skirt until her knuckles turn white. She looks at the president's silhouette, mature, beautiful, and effortlessly composed. The silence in the car feels like it's suffocating her as she wonders what Ryo really thinks of a woman like that. A loud, wet sneeze shatters the heavy mood. Ryo doesn't do elegant. He shoves his own handkerchief at her with the grace of a brick. He looks her right in the eyes, his voice softening just enough to be dangerous when he says, "You're not a little kid anymore." Then of course he ruins the moment by yelling at her to blow her nose. Miyazono watches them from the front, her chin resting on her hand as she studies their rhythm. Ryo notices Asahi shivering and starts peeling off his blazer. He plays it cool, offering the jacket like it's no big deal, even when she bites back with her usual cheeky attitude. He doesn't wait for her to take it. He drapes the heavy warm fabric over her head, drowning her in his scent, and shielding her from the car's chill. It's a moment of pure, unthinking protection that leaves Mizono's eyes fixed on them, her expression unreadable and sharp. Ryo attempts to play the babysitter card to hide his blushing, explaining away their closeness as just a childhood habit. Asahi isn't having it, puffing her cheeks and bickering back, their familiar noise filling the expensive silence of the car while Miyazono watches the rearview mirror. The rain doesn't let up as the car rolls to a stop. Miyazono stares out at the downpour, a calculated thought finally clicking into place behind her eyes. They scramble out into the wet air, juggling umbrellas and awkward goodbyes. Asahi offers a shaky thanks, but as they turn to leave, Miyazono's hand shoots out. She grabs Ryo's arm, pulling him back toward the car with a sudden jarring force. The world stops for Asahi. Through the translucent screen of the umbrella, she sees the president lean in, her hand on Ryo's shoulder, their faces drawing together in a way that can only mean one thing. From where Asahi is standing, it looks like a heart-stopping, rain-soaked confession. Up close, the air is electric. Mizuno's breath hits his cheek as she delivers her challenge, low and lethal. She isn't looking for a kiss, she's looking for blood. She whispers, "Let's fight fair and square." Mizuno pulls away with a satisfied smirk, leaving Ryo blinking in the rain. Behind them, Asahi is a statue. Her eyes are wide, her face pale, her brain struggling to process the visual strike she just witnessed. The car speeds off, leaving them in a silence heavy enough to drown in. Ryo struggles to brush it off, but Asahi is vibrating with pure, unadulterated panic. Her face erupts into a violent red as the thought finally screams through her head. A kiss? The school at night is a different beast. Shadows stretch like claws down the hallway, and every rustle of the wind sounds like a footstep. Asahi is vibrating with a frequency that could shatter glass, her hands clenched tight against her chest while she tries to pretend this was all part of the plan. A sudden clatter echoes through the corridor, sending Asahi into a tailspin. Ryo watches her jaw tighten and her eyes well up, that stubborn pride barely holding back the dam. He sighs, letting go of the distance between them, and extends a hand into the dark. Here. Her panic does a backflip into pure, unadulterated sass. She slaps his hand away, the blush on her cheeks glowing even in the moonlight. If she can't handle the dark, she'll handle him instead, leaning in with a smirk that's far too sharp for someone whose knees are still knocking. Does Senpai believe in whittle ghosties? She's on a roll now, smelling blood in the water. She closes the distance, her eyes gleaming with that dangerous, playful light that usually means Ryo's common sense is about to take a beating. She tilts her head, her voice dropping into a sugary, lethal purr. You've never actually held hands with a girl before, have you? The virgin senpai routine is the last straw. Ryo's resolve snaps like a dry twig. He doesn't just push back, he lashes out, his voice cracking the heavy silence of the hallway. It's a gut shot delivered with zero filter. Who'd ever be happy about holding hands with someone like you? The words land like a physical blow. For a split second, the image of that umbrella, the kiss she thinks she saw, flashes behind her eyes, fueling a fire that's half jealousy and half heartbreak. She barks back, her voice trembling with more than just the cold. Well, I don't want to hold your hand either. It's a race to the bottom of maturity. They trade insults like they're back on the playground, calling each other gross and sweaty while the darkness of the school swallows up their common sense. Asahi turns on her heel, marching off into the gloom alone just to prove a point she's already lost. Ryo watches her back disappear into the shadows, the irritation in his chest already cooling into a nagging sense of guilt. He knows her. He knows she's currently counting every heartbeat, trying to pretend the silhouettes of lockers aren't monsters waiting to pounce. He should have just let her tease him. Then, the horror movie cliché strikes. A pale, half-dissected face peers out from the darkness, the school's anatomical model, a nightmare in plastic and paint. Asahi's brain short-circuits. Instead of a simple scream, she erupts. Before the echo even dies, she's lunging back toward Ryo, her hands snapping onto his like a lifebuoy. Gu-us! The pride is gone, replaced by a desperate, trembling grip. Ryo finds his footing again, the smugness returning now that he's the one holding the cards. He looks down at the girl who was just calling him names, now reduced to a shivering mess hiding behind his shoulder. This isn't a game, it's a surrender. The silence between them is filled by the heat where their palms meet. It's slick, awkward, and undeniably real. Asahi tries to claw back some dignity with a weak complaint about sweaty hands, but the way she refuses to let go tells a completely different story. She's clinging to him like her life depends on it. He leans into it, testing her. The air between them is thick enough to choke on as he pulls her hand a fraction closer. He watches her eyes go wide, her breath hitching in her throat as he delivers the final blow to her remaining defenses. If you say that, maybe I'll get even closer. The joke dies in his throat when he sees her face. Her eyes are shimmering, her lip trembling in a way that isn't for show. This isn't cheeky banter anymore. She's genuinely on the edge. Ryo pulls back, the realization hitting him like a bucket of ice water. He messed up. Sorry, I went too far. She doesn't pull away. Instead, her fingers tighten, digging into his skin like she's afraid he'll vanish if she lets go. The facade is gone. No teasing, no pride, just a small girl lost in the dark, whispering the one thing she's been trying to hide all night. Don't let go. The walk continues in a silence that's no longer heavy, but oddly protective. She stays glued to his side, her head down, clutching the edge of his sleeve like a lifeline. She doesn't need to say another word. The way she's holding on says everything. Please. Ryo's heart is doing laps in his chest. He can't keep up with her. 1 minute she's a hurricane of insults. The next she's this fragile thing he needs to protect. He scratches his neck, the awkwardness radiating off him in waves, but he doesn't pull his hand away. He can't. Just as the air starts to settle, another sound cuts through the hallway. A sharp, mechanical clatter. Asahi flinches, her grip tightening even more. It's not a ghost this time. The door at the end of the hall is sliding open, casting a new, terrifying light onto the scene. The intruder isn't a monster, but for Ryo, it might as well be. Out of the darkness pops Yuta, flashlight in hand and pure confusion written across his face. He hears the screams, he sees the shadows, and he knows exactly whose voice that was. The secret night school trip just got a lot more crowded. The moment of truth is carved into a sheet of paper on the hallway wall. Ryo is practically humming with enough nervous energy to power the school. He gave up Golden Week, he gave up his gacha addiction, and he practically lived in his textbooks just for this. He clenches his fist, eyes locked on the crowd as he thinks, I did everything I could, all that's left is to believe. The hallway is a sea of chattering students, but for Ryo and the club, the world has narrowed down to a rhythmic, heavy thumping in their chests. Miyazono stands there, arms crossed, the picture of regal confidence. Then the list comes into focus. There it is, right at the top. Rank 1, Kageyama Ryo. He actually did it. He took down the queen. The silence breaks like a glass vase hitting the floor. The crowd is losing their minds because the impossible just happened. The untouchable President Miyazono actually lost. Ryo's friends are practically tackling him, screaming, "That's awesome, Ryo," while he just stares at the board, the weight of the club's survival finally lifting off his shoulders. He can't help but smirk at the rival who thought she had him beat, taunting, "See that, Miyazono?" For the first time, the mask of the perfect president slips. Miyazono is flushed, her hand hovering near her mouth as she fixes her gaze on the one person who managed to outrun her. It's not just anger, it's the look of someone who just realized the easy target is actually a threat. Back in the quiet of the club room, the gloating begins. Ryo is leaning into his victory, basking in Miyazono's frustration as she scrambles to blame the English exam's difficulty for her loss. She's all sharp edges and wounded pride, insisting it was pure luck. But the terms of the bet are set in stone. Ryo leans in, the predator now the one holding the leash, reminding her that she has to do exactly one thing he says. Miyazono expects something depraved or humiliating, but Ryo drops a curveball that leaves her short-circuiting. He wants her to become the vice president of the Modern Culture Exchange Club. He isn't looking for a slave, he's looking for a shield. With the student president's name on the roster, the club becomes untouchable. She stares at him, her face a mask of pure annoyance as she asks, "Is that really what you want to ask for?" She isn't going to let him off that easy. Miyazono leans over the desk, her eyes turning predatory as she starts to unbutton her blazer. The atmosphere between them suddenly feels 10 degrees hotter. She's testing him, probing for the otaku weakness he tried so hard to hide. She whispers, "Aren't you wasting a chance to?" as Ryo's brain goes into full-blown emergency shutdown. Ryo snaps. He's not falling for the fan service trap. He barks at her to stop being weird, shouting that losers should act like losers and feel frustrated. He expects her to be furious, but instead a quiet, genuine look crosses her face. She admits she is frustrated, but then she adds something that catches him completely off guard, "But I'm also happy at the same time." The teasing stops. The room goes quiet as Miyazono looks Ryo right in the eye, the sun catching the red in her hair. She's seen the effort he put in, the way he actually rose to meet her challenge instead of folding. She hits him with a truth that cuts through all the games. "It means you finally faced off against me seriously, right?" The romantic tension is so thick you could cut it with a knife, until a literal locker starts vibrating. A sharp creak echoes through the room, and Ryo's internal alarm bells start screaming. He and Miyazono both flinch as a terrifying rattling sound erupts from the storage unit, followed by a muffled, high-pitched scream that definitely doesn't belong to a ghost. The locker door bursts open and Asahi tumbles out. looking like she's about to die of sheer embarrassment. She's sweating, her hair is a mess, and she's forcing out the most painful ah-ha you've ever heard. Ryo is just staring at her in disbelief, demanding to know why on earth his childhood friend was living in the club's storage during his private meeting with the president. The awkwardness triples as Miyazono immediately marks her territory, formally introducing herself as the new vice president. Asahi looks like she's swallowed a lemon, and it only gets worse when Ryo accidentally twists the knife, reminding everyone that Asahi isn't even a member of the club. He adds that she doesn't have nerdy hobbies anyway, completely oblivious to the storm brewing in her eyes. Asahi watches from the sidelines as Ryo and Miyazono start actually getting along. They're talking about manga, sharing smiles, and finding common ground that doesn't involve bickering for once. It's the one thing Asahi can't handle, seeing Ryo find a safe haven with someone who isn't her. When Ryo finally turns to ask what she needed, he's met with a silence that's way too heavy. The teasing mask doesn't just slip, it disintegrates. Asahi's face is a portrait of raw, unadulterated jealousy, her eyes wide and trembling as she makes a sound that's half sob, half growl. Ryo and Miyazono are both frozen, terrified by the sudden emotional nuclear meltdown happening right in front of them. Ryo stammers, "Why are you crying all of a sudden?" as Asahi finally reaches her limit. She doesn't explain, she doesn't apologize. She just lunges forward, grabbing Ryo's arm with a grip like a vice and wailing, "I'm joining too, this club." It's a total surrender of her pride just to make sure she doesn't lose her spot next to him. Ryo's brain is currently a 404 error page, while Miyazono just watches with a smug, knowing little smirk. And just like that, Ryo's dreams of a peaceful, solitary otaku life go up in smoke. He's physically caught in the middle of a tug-of-war, with Miyazono smugly claiming her VP rights and Asahi clinging to him like a life raft. He looks at the camera with pure soul-crushing realization. His quiet life is officially over, and the real chaos is only just beginning.